Well, if it's noon, if it's Friday, it must be the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm Steve Casillo. Thanks for being here today. And today, as we do every Friday at 12 noon right here on Facebook, we are going to talk taxes. And let's just hop right into it. Let's bring in Adam Coen. He is our resident tax guru. Appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here as always.
Very good. And today's topic is choosing a tax professional, especially in this day where it's so easy to just log on to the computer and try to do it yourself. And well, Adam, if that's if someone hits a roadblock, and what should they look for in a tax professional?
Well, let's say they've made the decision. They're going to leave the retail software to other people. They're going to go off and find themselves a professional. First things first, are they licensed? You want to look for, are they a certified public accountant? There's a lot of people out there who say, well, I take my stuff to a CPA, but they've never really asked whether that person actually is a CPA. There's another class of professionals out there called enrolled agents. I hold that license. And above and beyond that are additional accolades and credentials that people can get. That's the first question is this person even licensed to do this work?
Okay,
Uh,
so
Go ahead.
go through the hierarchy of. You mentioned enrolled agent. You mentioned CPA. I know that in the real estate world, there is a hierarchy of uh, uh, real estate agent, uh, realtor, and broker. I just recently learned that because I'm not in the business. Is there
Right.
a hierarchy of financial tax titles?
Yeah, there is absolutely, and the the issue is really a threshold to entry question: is how much more difficult is it to become the next level up? But that being said, there are people who hold all of these licenses who are worth the time and the money, and there are people who are not. So there's additional level of vetting. But for the most part, threshold to entry, the lowest part is going to be enrolled agent. It's a test, a series of tests, as opposed to CPA license, which is both education and tests. And in both cases, you've got continuing education that has to be met. So for the most part, CPA generally is going to be a more skilled, perhaps more well-rounded person. Enrolled agents almost always focus on just tax.
All right, let's get back to the tax return here. So I bring my shoebox to the tax professional. Uh-oh, you're saying
Sure.
no, 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 no.
Yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And is the tax professional responsible for the numbers that eventually wind up on my tax return?
No, they're not. If you were to be audited, it's ultimately on you as the person who signs the tax return as the taxpayer. It's on you to prove them up, to know what's on that tax return, and you have to stand behind it. Uh, I've seen it happen time and time again where unscrupulous preparers put numbers up on a tax return that they shouldn't have, fabricate numbers. Taxpayer gets audited, turns around, and they say, "Well, my preparer did it. My accountant did it." Well, the IRS says that's between you and the accountant. That's a civil matter.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's your responsibility to report what's correct on the return.
So before you sign that tax return, before you ship it off to the IRS, it wouldn't hurt to take a look at the numbers.
It wouldn't hurt to take a look at the numbers and to at least understand what you're signing. I had a case last year where a new client had come to me, and we'd done a lot of work preparing the return, and we got everything ready. We were down to the wire. They signed electronically. We submitted it. I happened to be reviewing the return later on, and the numbers just didn't make sense to me. I started asking them questions. It turns out they had forgotten to give me a W 2 that was comprised of about $300,000. And
Ouch.
obviously, that was a big swing. But again, that was a matter of they didn't take a moment to review the return. They admitted that. I hadn't had enough chance to get to know them because they were new. And so that's another important aspect of it is if you're going to sign, at least do a cursory review.
All right, so I'm looking for a tax professional. Uh,
Sure.
Aside from someone who wears a really nice shirt, what what questions should I ask the professional before hiring them?
Sure. I would ask them, number one, what licenses do you hold? Be it the ones we've discussed or others. Do they deal in securities or insurances in addition to tax and accounting? And the reason you might want to do that is, let's say you're the type of person that wants to bring all of your financials under one roof. If you're looking for that kind of person, or you're not looking for that kind of person, it would be good to know whether you're going to be pushed those services or not. You want to know, do they ever represent anybody before the IRS? How many of their clients have been audited in the past? Um, Another question you might ask yourself is, should I go to the person who has bars on their window? Um, or should I, perhaps look for somebody who's got a stable relationship with the community and the businesses around them? So ask that question. Have they been in the industry long? How long has their business been around? And you can tell that a lot of times by the amount of gray in their hair,
Yeah.
and and then whether or not they enjoy working with your type of tax return. Do they prefer working with individuals, or do they prefer working with businesses? That's all good interview stuff.
Right. Because I would assume some CPAs have their specialties, whether it's large
Yeah,
corporations, smaller businesses, or the homeowner.
exactly.
Uh,
And there's some who will only work with trusts and estates. They don't want to work with an individual or a business owner.
Why why a tax professional? I see commercials all the time for we all you have to do is log in and you do your taxes. And so what are the benefits of hiring a tax pro versus doing it DIY online?
Yeah, let me preface that by saying, have you ever had to have surgery of any kind?
I, of course.
Okay, so did you go on YouTube and look at how to do an appendectomy, and then decide you'd just do the at-home DIY version, and then if you needed, some help, maybe you'd go see a doctor later on? That's a little obtuse, but you get my meaning. Is basically you're going to somebody who's got years of experience, ideally, somebody who's licensed, ideally, and somebody who has a wealth of knowledge to bring to the situation. You're really paying for the convenience of not having to go out and learn all the rules and the regulations, and to have somebody who can think through logically how to save you the most amount of money. Software is great, and I'll be honest, I use the software for myself. But the vast majority of the time, the person who's using the software, W-2 employee, simple return. The more complicated it gets, the more likely it is you need to involve somebody who's a professional.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the viewers, for the listeners, uh, I've been hacking up a lung over here with my mic off, but it's we're getting through this, and we've only got about another minute to go. So, uh, if anyone had any questions about hiring a professional tax person, how can they get a hold of Adam Cohen?
Yeah, give me a call, 817-231-0666. Again, 817-231-0666, and I can walk you through the process. See if we would be a good fit. It's up to you guys how you want to go forward, but I'd love the opportunity to talk with you.
Adam, I still have my appendix. I think I'm going to head on over to YouTube and see if I can pull that out myself. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. We'll do this again next week.
You too, Steve. Thanks.